Today, the Finance and Co-Production Day, we have a very wonderful big panel moderated by Irit Neidhardt, who's joined by Guneet, Monga, Sabine, Sidawi, Laurent, Lavolé, Bero, Beyer, and Christina Kopf. Thank you, enjoy.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the panel Co-Production Means Business. We have 5 very different people on the panel who will fan out what it can mean, co-production means business. And I like, before we go into discussion, I would like just everybody of you to briefly introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Sabine Sidawi. I'm a Lebanese producer. I produce Lebanese movie and sometimes Arab movies, and I co-produce international movies. And I'm based in Beirut.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Laurent Lavolé. So my company is Gloria Film. I'm based in Paris, and I'm both producing feature films and documentaries. Actually, we are in production of 3 films, 2 international co-production, one from a first-time director from Ethiopia, another one from a Brazilian director that we named Sandra Kogut. We produced her first film 7 years ago, and we are now in post-production of the second one, and also a French film for the moment.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tine Kopf. I'm from Germany. I work for the Robert Bosch Foundation for the Film Prize of International Cooperation, and we award Film Prize up to 70,000 euros for 3 projects every year for international cooperation between Germans, young German filmmakers and filmmakers from the Arab region.
Hello, I'm Guneet, and I'm a producer from India. We are into producing Hindi language films. We try and tell local stories which connect universally. In the last few years, we were the first ones to do the official co-production between India and France, which was the Lunchbox. And we've produced several films in the last 5-6 years which have traveled internationally to film festivals, and now looking forward for more international co-productions. It's very new, this concept of international co-productions in India, but it's very exciting. Yeah, so in the business of that.
Hi, good morning. My name is Bero Beyer. I'm a producer. I'm based in the Netherlands, but I haven't produced a Dutch film at all. All my films were either set or shot abroad in Palestine. The other Irfan Khan movie, I was slightly involved in that as a minority co-producer. There's a film tomorrow called Atlantic, a Moroccan film. You may have heard of a film called Paradise Now, which was my Palestinian production. But I've changed sides. For a few years, I've taken on a term to work for a fund, our national film fund in the Netherlands. So literally from begging for money as a producer, I went to the other side to be able to look at other applicants and to award them co-production support on various levels. We'll talk more about that. There's many ways to try and co-produce with the Netherlands. Like I said, all the films I've done were co-productions. So that should be interesting. So I'm trying to put out the Netherlands as a co-production country for any kind of cinema, really.
Why don't we start with it, and you just tell us how you co-produce, or what does it mean to co-produce with the Netherlands and to get money from the Dutch Film Fund?
I would say there are about 4 ways into our country. The first one being finding someone rich or a distributor that puts money in your film. I think you actually managed to succeed in that for Lunchbox. So, no, for which one?
For Monsoon Shootout.
For Monsoon Shootout.
We have a Netherlands private investor.
There you go. That's number 1. It doesn't happen that often, so you have to be really good to be able to pull that off. But it happens. The second, and it sort of depends what kind of film you're trying to realize, we have a fund which is based or connected to the Rotterdam Film Festival called the Hubert Bals Fund, which supports development and production, post-production for films set in what they call DAC list countries. And many Arab countries are eligible for that, which is really the sweetest co-production support you can get for development or production. It's not that much money, but it's a very valuable start and often a warm embrace by the Rotterdam Film Festival to put you in Cinemart or to help you get on the way, find more international partners. That's the second way. The third route is something that I do now as like a daily job, which is the selective funding of the Dutch Film Fund. Which means we select projects based on their artistic and cultural quality, as well as their sensible co-production structure. What does that mean? That means that you have to spend a lot of the money that you get from the Film Fund on Dutch elements, so that we are ideally looking for creative co-productions, so that it's not just a financial transaction. That was option number one, but that you have a true co-production in a creative and in a business sense. This is up to 250,000 euros if it's a strong co-production. So it's usually for films ranging between 500,000 and like 4 million budget. Those are some nice films are coming out of this, and all of my minority co-productions I've been able to get that support because they were based on great scripts or directors, and that's why they help them.
Do you
as
need,
well as, sorry?
Do you need a Dutch production partner for this?
For that, you need a Dutch co-producer, yes. We are, to backtrack just one step, this fund is our national fund. It's a public fund. It's not a hedge fund or a corporate fund. It's taxpayers have paid for this money. So it's a cultural fund. So we are, in the end, hoping to get a better Dutch film industry, and we believe we get a better Dutch film industry by having our producers and creative talents work with talents from all over the world, be it India, be it United Arab Emirates, be it Morocco, or usually it's just Germany, Belgium, Ireland, you know, let's be honest, it's usually the Europeans, but once in a while we can take on other projects because they're often very exciting, they're new. And then let's go to the last option, which is just new, or relatively new. It was presented during the Cannes Film Festival, the last edition, which is we have a cash rebate system, which means if you're involved in an even bigger film, or in a more, let's call it mainstream film, you have money to spend in the Netherlands, you can get a cash rebate and you get a third back. So it's up to 30% cash rebate if you have, say you're doing a film and you want to shoot in the Netherlands, or you use post-production and you use crews in usually European co-productions, admittedly, but it can be from anywhere except Hollywood, basically. You spend the money in the Netherlands, all your eligible costs, you get 30% back. Again, you need a Dutch co-producer, so that's usually where it starts, finding the right Dutch co-producer. He can guide you through that process. Best part of all this is, and the alarms are going off, best part of all this is it's combinable. You can combine all those elements. So we try to be as flexible as possible because let's face it, every film is a new prototype. So we try to be flexible to see would it be best fit in this scheme or that scheme. And it obviously depends on I assume you guys, what kind of film you are trying to realize, how you try to structure it, and then we see how we can fit in.
But can you take money from the Hubert Bals Fund for an Arab film and spend this Dutch money in Holland and then get back 30% from you?
Exactly, that's exactly the point. But to be honest, the cash rebate system is very similar to other European cash rebate systems and tax credits. It only makes sense if you spend enough. Yeah. So there's a bottom limit. You have to, it's for bigger projects, usually like 1 million at least budget. If you're doing smaller films and you're going just Hubert Bals, be happy with the Hubert Bals money. There's a Hubert Bals Plus scheme. They even introduced a Hubert Bals Plus Europe scheme if you have another European co-producer attached. You can add all that up, but it's you always have to look sensible as to what is the range of the co-production and at what point does it make sense or not. So rule of thumb, if you're making a film under 800,000, it's usually just Hubert Bals, sometimes with the selective funding. If you're over $1 million, then the cash rebate makes sense.
Okay, thank you. There's a second fund on the panel, which is the Film Prize of the Robert Bosch Foundation. You said you award once a year this prize. Can you just say very briefly what it is and what is the idea behind it?
Yes, of course. In our case, co-production or cooperation does not really mean business, because the idea of the film prize behind is international cooperation and cultural exchange. And the film prize is a training and networking program for young filmmakers, because the Robert Bosch Foundation would like to encourage international cooperation between Germany and the Arab region. So you can apply only as a team together with a German filmmaker. It could be the German filmmaker is a director and an Arab producer, but most of the cases it's an Arab director with a local producer, and then you have to find a German producer. And then you can apply in the categories animation, short animation, documentary, could also be long feature documentary, and short fiction.
And why do you do it? I mean, because you said it's not a business, so what is it then?
As I said, the idea of the Robert Bosch Foundation, it's not to strengthen the film industry of Germany or something, but to build up a network, because we think doing together a film is a very good possibility to get an insight in the culture of both countries, and also to build up a network between young filmmakers, young artists.
And if the prize is for short films, is it high enough to complete a film with your money, or do you need additional funds?
Of course, you can. I think you can do a short with 70,000 euros. You can get up to 70,000 euros in our film prize program. But of course, the German producers often are also try to get more German money, so you don't have to do referrals.
Is the fund that is given by the Bosch Foundation given to the German producer, or is it also like because you're always in the idea of always doing everything together, giving half of it to the German producer and half of it to the Arab producer?
No, the money is going to the German producer, but the idea is, of course, that it's a cooperation, so you spend it together with the Arab producer.
Okay, and both of them, do they have to report it for you, or only the German? Yeah, who's responsible of this amount of money?
Responsible in terms of abrechnen?
Of the accounting?
Yeah, you do the accounting is the German producer. He is responsible for the German foundation.
Okay, thank you. This was already a question by a producer. So we had 2 funds and we have 3 producers on the panel. And I would like to continue or to ask you, Sabine, because you said you produce Lebanese films and you co-produce Arab films, and then you said you co-produce international, which I mean Arabs which are not Lebanese, I suppose, are international in a way.
International.
So yeah, can you just explain how you work?
Okay, I produce Lebanese directors, so for me those are Lebanese movies, even if the director is Lebanese living in France or in Germany or whatever. I see it as a Lebanese movie, and because I finance it as a Lebanese movie. The Arab movies that I produce, usually I co-produce them, and it's, for example, a Jordanian director or a Palestinian director, and that I produce as Arab movies. What I've been doing recently also is co-producing a European director that has a project that has something to do with the Arab world. And those kind of films and projects, they cannot be counted as Arab movies. It's another way of financing them. So usually it's finding investors and sponsors that are interested in putting money in those films on the financial way. But what interests me more in those projects is that bringing this project to the Arab world. For example, when we worked with Carlos, we found a little bit of money to produce.
The film Carlos.
Yeah, the film Carlos. But what was interesting is to bring the film to Lebanon and to shoot for 8 weeks in Beirut with the crew that were Lebanese crew and French crew and German crew. And mainly to have also the Lebanese actors participate in a very very important. They were some of them were in the main actors to participate, because this way it also helps the actors to be viewed internationally and find more work for them, and also for the Lebanese crew to work with international crew and get some experience and also get some income and also get a possibility to work alone in a French production. And this is what happened with some of the crew that were on another film. They directly in another French film, they directly contacted them to work with them. So it opens for the Arab crew and actors new horizons. And this was what was interesting for me. And on the other hand, for the European, it was also to open up to other countries and to get more authenticity for their film. For example, when we were doing Carlos, there was some errors in the script itself, because everyone that worked on it were French. And when I read it, and I said, no, this didn't happen, because it was a historical fact. So this didn't happen like that, it happened like that. So it always brings new. We did now recently a film with Robert Guédiguian about the Armenian genocide. And also a part of it was shot in Lebanon. So also it was that was the interesting part. And for the financing, we tried to find someone who was interested in the project, to find some money from him.
But so part of the business is a clear strategy to get from a stronger Lebanese position into European markets, also for the crew, for crew to find work.
Yes, it's the art part. I'm not talking that I said it always gives something a new, a reality thing, and this is the a part of it. But also there's the business part of it, and it opens up horizons for everyone, and, for the French coming into Lebanon or for the Lebanese going into France. And I think this is an important part of the of the co-production. It's like really trying to merge things together in an artistic way and also in a business way.
Okay, thank you, Laurent. You are the French producer here, and we just had 2 French examples. And for Arab producers, still France is a very important co-production country because of the Francophonie mainly. But you produced films. You mentioned Ethiopia and Brazil. I think you co-produced a Korean film as well. So what is your interest in co-producing worldwide, and maybe also what is your options in France, because the funding system obviously is supportive there?
Yeah, yes, I'm always supposed to be the lucky guy, because we have France is a country where you have many opportunities for co-productions, funding, and so of course, as you said, we have a special link with countries from North Africa, of course, from Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and if the films coming from there are French-speaking films, all the French system is open for this kind of films. So in the past, I have produced, for example, Fawzi Ben Saidi. Maybe you know this Moroccan director, and so I had produced his short films first, which did very well. They went in Cannes, Venice, Berlin, and then his first 2 feature films, and these films were produced almost like French films, but in co-production with Moroccan partners also, but we had the French support from the system because they were French-speaking films. Regarding my interest in co-production, I mean, I would say it's really always starting from the project. I mean, from the script and from the meeting with the director, and I'm trying to share my work as a producer between French films, which is almost half of my activity as a producer, and films from the rest of the world. And but of course, because also I'm French, which means I'm in a country where I can find these opportunities. So for French-speaking films, I told you a little bit about that regarding this Moroccan experience. For example, I shot also film in Tunisia. I mean, it's open because of the language, but for other countries, we have a strong. I mean, we have strong partners in France. Possible, of course. We have this fund, Aide au Cinéma du Monde, which has been renewed 3 years ago. It was called Fonds Sud before. I'm sure you knew about that, and now it's really open for any countries in the world, with some spending obligations, but which I mean, you have to spend half the money in France. Usually, it's in post-production, but it can, yeah. And we have some opportunities with the broadcasters, very competitive, because I mean we are lucky because we have all these funds and money open for co-production, but it's extremely competitive. So the one we think about first is of course Arte as a broadcaster, but it's like around 15 films a year, and and half of them coming from other countries. And regarding this 50%, maybe half of it is for like big names and very experienced directors, and the rest of the money for maybe first-time directors or I mean discoveries. And it was, for example, the case with you for Lunchbox, for example. And so we have also strong distributors and sales agents, and there is a market for these films. Maybe it's the most important thing also, or one of the most important things, is that there is a taste and coming from the audience in France. I mean, for example, Lunchbox, the film did 500,000 admissions in France, which was huge. Or Vajda did almost the same, I think 460,000 admissions. And so there is really a domestic market, I mean, in France for this kind of international co-productions. We have good sales agents also. I mean, quite often in international co-production, I mean, the basis can be, yes, trying to have a good application for this Aide au Cinéma du Monde, and maybe a French distributor attached or French sales agent. That's it. And we have also, but not so much with the Arab world, co-production treaties between the National Center of Cinema and other countries. I think today it's almost 40 countries in the world, and which gives a European codification to the films and opens some other funding possibilities, but not so many for the films coming from here, except from North Africa. Yeah.
But so definitely it sounds that the French system is encouraging international co-productions that
Definitely.
make it also a business that can sustain you.
A business, yes. I never say. I mean, of course, business is important when you are a producer, but I don't think about international co-production saying, okay, I will do big business with it. I mean, it's not like this. But sometimes it works. Sometimes you have a very little share of a film, and but it's always starting from, for me. I mean, not like chasing projects all over the world to do as many as possible with some kind of business model. It's not like this, but it's always starting from the project, the script, meeting with the director, and trying to do not too many of them, but to do it well. But yes, we have some nice opportunities in the country. But
Okay, thank you. I would like to ask Guneet, we already heard from Sabine that she's working on international productions that are shot in Lebanon. Now, what I read is that you do the remake, the Hindi remake of The Untouchables. And I was very curious by this because I'm asked many times by Arab producers why the popular Egyptian films are not distributed into Germany, but usually really popular films don't travel. So what is your motivation to remake it after it was a box office hit already?
So, you know, even Indian films don't really travel outside the diaspora in terms of distribution. We did have a relatively good market in 70s and 80s where we spoke about Indian cinema that was traveling internationally. And after that, 2 decades of not being able to find that content that resonates around the world. I'm just backtracking a little to add a little more insight from my point of view, that it's only been the last 4 years where programmers from the top film festivals have discovered films from Berlin, Cannes, Venice, Toronto, have discovered few Indian films and have started putting Indian cinema on the world map. It's very, very new. It's been only 4 years since the last 4 or 5 editions of the major festivals. And it's only now that the Indian producers are trying to find out the whole ecosystem of international distribution with sales agents, with the way the films are distributed, the way the deals are done. So it's very new for India. Having said that, I mean, I say this all the time, that the Indo-French treaty was signed in 1985. The first film to happen under that was in 2012 called The Lunchbox. We've just done another Indo-French co-production. So there are a lot of ways of engaging with Europe or with producers worldwide. We are all in the business of telling, or we are all trying to be, in the business of discovering really good scripts and telling those stories, being behind them, finding the money around the world, hopefully premiering at a A-list festival, and then distribution. As the whole ecosystem and process proceeds and we all learn with it, there are a lot of ways of working together with French studios, American studios, and exchanging more content. Very recently in India, the remake market has become extremely relevant, and there are studios that want to fund it, there are actors that want to act. Also within India, international films, outside of the big English language American films, we don't really have the concept of platform releases. We don't really have the concept of bringing international cinema into India for release. So it's both ways. I mean, neither does outside the diaspora, we don't travel, and we also don't really get international films as a release. We only get the big American films, and we get very few of those Oscar nominated, but that's literally 1 week. The market in India is very aggressive. It's always about the first week, second week, and boom, then you're out. So that's the whole theatrical run. The satellite run in India is also extremely complicated. Having said that, we've all figured ways of working around that. So remakes is very exciting. And as we talk about the business of films and the business of co-production, Untouchables is produced by Gaumont, which is a big studio of France, and it is working with them. They're co-producers on it, and it's such a heartwarming story that it will translate into a larger audience. A very few % of Indians would have seen Untouchables. It really never made that impact in India. So there is a window of business, there is a window where actors are excited, investors are excited, studios in India are excited because it has a worldwide box office strength, and it is such an amazing, heartwarming story. And it is again working with a French co-producer, working with a French studio, finding another way of working together, while there are so many other challenges. So I feel it is very cool to be able to do that, and there are few more happening in India. They also have the Priceless remake somebody in India has. They also have Warrior, the American film. So it is really just started now, and it's growing. So it's about bringing a story, it's about putting it together and working with partners around the world.
Thank you. You wanted to ask something?
No, I just wanted to add that I think one of the sad conclusions is, or also a positive conclusion, whichever angle you take, that for a large part, I think all of us agree, co-production does not mean business at all, because there's not always a real business model behind it. And there are a few exceptions, and I think Guneet's been extremely successful in some of those, where actually the creative, cultural, drive that made the film possible, the talent that wants to get heard, is giving a platform, and it actually works as a business. The success of Lunchbox was phenomenal. Wajda was pretty big, but those are really, exceptions, I'm afraid. So for a large part, that business means finding French or other public funders that never get to see their money back. And in finding those projects in where you can have a sensible co-production with partly private equity money that will get its money back because the other half does not have to recoup, is sometimes the solution. And to think of a way like doing those remakes, I think is a brilliant idea, to keep working, to keep developing your talents, basically, and do a business at the same time, because it's, for the Netherlands, and I think it's been a trend in Europe, apart from those exceptions, like La Grande Bellezza, etc., there's not that much distribution potential for a foreign language film, because you just get blown away by, The Hobbit and what have you. So it's being very sensible about when a film is a project that gets its recognition and its business from, let's say, public and cultural incentives, gets its visibility on A-list festivals and gets celebrated as such. And in some cases, yes, it actually does translate to what we hope it will be, a business which can sustain itself.
I just want to add to that I learned it the harder way of being able to produce independent films for the last 5 years and reaching a point where I needed to find a business model around it. So after 5 years, I concluded that it is about, as a producer, it is about balancing your slate. It is about being able to balance what you love doing, continue telling a story, a good story, and being as away from the typical cliches that you can be. I mean, we all have mainstreams, and I feel that in India, I realized that I need to be in the business to be able to make any impact. I cannot be outside, and I cannot, though I rebelled and I found a way around by finding money internationally, by collaborating and learning on the way. But I feel that as producers, we need to be very aware to find a business model where we can tell a passionate independent film, be very responsible on the cost of it. There's this term, responsible budget, that I use very frequently. Be very aware that this will maybe get into a point where it will not recoup its money. And yet, as a producer, you have something else in your slate which can allow you to run your office, can allow you to sustain, and can allow you to grow, and can allow you to do what you love doing.
Thank you. Are there questions from the audience already? Or yeah. Do we have mics? It's here in the second row.
Hello, everyone. My question is to Ms. Monga. You've mentioned that co-production is something that's happened quite recently in India. Now, with the phenomenal success of the Lunchbox, how has that affected the need to approach international investors and the presence of local investors willing to put money in such movies?
So there is always, so basically when you try doing something new, the first thing that happens is this won't work, right? That's the first thing that everyone tells you. What is this? I mean, why are there were 20 plus co-producers. I mean, after all the names, I mean, why does one want to tell a story with so many minds controlling it? Those were the insecurities of a lot of Indian companies. Nobody wanted to pick up Lunchbox when it got made, even after it got selected in Cannes. Literally our satellite rights in India closed a couple of weeks back. So it's been a challenge. So because it's first time and because it's new and there is no precedence to it, the first impact was, why do it? Why are you doing it? And if you do it, you'll fail. Second impact, they realized, oh, you did not fail. This has become a worldwide phenomena. And now, is that a business plan that I can commit while starting the film in 2011, 2012? No. I mean, we met around that time, and as the film grows, you find out where it's going, what's happening. So then, now there is a lot of awareness, a lot of curiosity, a lot of like, what happened? What did they do? How much money did they actually make? So all the internet reports, it made $22 million worldwide box office. So there's a lot of curiosity within India, of course. They all want to know. Like none of the big Bollywood films made in like $20 million have made this kind of money. Internationally, I'm not talking about the India territory. So there's a lot of curiosity. So there are a lot of people who want to invest. And there are a lot of people who want to know what it takes to be a part of this. Of course, a lot of credibility people have gotten very excited about with Lunchbox. So it's opened a lot of doors, which I'm very glad it did for cinema, for Indian cinema in general. Finding a balance, like our next, we've just co-produced another one with France, with Arte, and called Masan. We'll see how all these films do. And once if this happens 3-4 times, then of course, within India, there will be a huge lot of acceptance. But currently, I can surely say this, that when I started with Monsoon Shootout in 2009, 2010, Arte, and we had Netherlands investor, it was all like, why co-produce? Because the general mentality was of a landlord mentality, that it's all mine, the whole IP is mine, the whole share is mine. What is the concept of sales agents? The deliveries are so expensive. It was a debate. It was a constant debate. So having said that, from there to now, there are a lot of us. There is a lot of co-productions happening. There are a lot of independent producers who have now come up. There are a lot of directors who have come up, like Coat, that one in Venice, like so many other people, the Liar's Dice, which is now the Oscar entry. There are young producers and they're all going out doing that. So yes, there is a very significant change. There is hope. But the next 5 years to this decade will define the existence of Indian cinema.
I would like to ask a question to Laurent, because what we witnessed in recent years, and maybe when it comes to Europe and also international film festivals, maybe it started with Iranian cinema, that there were waves of foreign cinematographies that made it and that got an attraction, and then there was a new wave, and now we hear there are a lot of Indian co-productions. And you said you co-produce with countries from all over. You don't focus on a certain region. Is there is there strategic thinking behind it, or does it just happen?
No, there was no particular strategy regarding this. The only strategy is to keep being, traveling around and being curious and going to script workshops and going to co-production meetings in Berlin, in the co-production market, in Cannes, at the atelier, and everywhere. And the only key is keep being curious. Of course, when you co-produce a film in a country, you're supposed sometime to become, you're the French producer who knows a little bit about the co-production system with this country, and so many projects comes to you from the same country. So I did films in Argentina or Brazil, and I had some more connection with the country after and so on. But it's not like trying to take the wave because it's from this country that you have to work with. No, the only key is to, being, how can I say, greedy about cultural, exchange and meetings. That's the point.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hello. Once you found a private investor, a rich one, what do you actually say concretely to convince him, without falling into this relationship of, without falling into seduction? There's no way I'm going to compromise anything to get some funds. So what would be the...
Sorry, what is the question? It's
the question is, what do you say concretely to convince a private investor?
I used to, while during Lunchbox, I used to just tell this to everybody, this will change your life. I used to really believe in it. I know this might sound like a joke, but I really, really believed in it, and I really used to say that. And besides that, you need to have a lot of your, to a private investor, you need to have a lot of your sheets made, which is parallel films, similar box offices. You need to explain them how this money will come back to them, when this money will come back to them, how you so you need to have your business plan of the film made, which is which needs to be vet, and they will throw these questions at you. I mean, because I've taken the mic to answer this question because we are only in the equity market in India. We don't have any government taxes, subsidies, taxpayers' money. And for every film, that is the process. You need to sit down and say, and in fact, for me, it's been tough because none of the films there has been a precedence. I've never been able to say this is like this. But having said that, we've driven international examples and we've tried to make parallels. You try and have those conversations, and then you say, this might even get into a festival. So there is a lot of ways you need to sit down and convince them that their money is safe.
I'm sorry, but when you're starting, like me, for example, when you're starting, you have a lot of films to show, successful films to show. So, but when we only film 2-3 short films, someone wants to answer, or someone else wants to answer?
I think it's not what she's saying. Is not only she's showing what her portfolio she has.
Business plan
she's showing other films that are similar to her film.
Yeah, I understood this.
And this is what everyone's doing, because even if you have films that you did and didn't succeed, sometimes you want to say, but this film, it didn't succeed commercially, but it succeeded on festivals. So also because investors, sometimes they want their money back. Of course, they want their money back, but sometimes they want more than their money back. And sometimes they want everything that the cinema is giving, that it's not only about the money, about being part of something that went to Cannes Festival, or that being part, just having their names, when all the other people from their country is going to see the film, they're going to see their name. There are a lot of seductive things in the cinema that you try to convince the investors with.
And I would like to say that you first need to know what are they looking for. Are they looking for their money back? Are they looking for a name? We've all started and started with, and most of the films that I've produced have been first-time directors. So I remember we made this film called Peddlers, where because it is a story that nobody in India traditionally wanted to finance, we made the film in $200,000, and we raised all the money on Facebook. And we made a club, and 10 people gave me $20,000 each. And I told it to everyone that you will never see this money back. So if you can afford to lose your money, but we promised to make the best possible film. We pulled it off with 10 people in the crew. We were mega indie. Nobody got anything to eat, but we just worked. And the film did get selected into Cannes, and it was in Critics Week in Cannes, and it was, all the investors are very happy. The film is still not released. It's not found its market in India. It's very tough, but none of the investors are unhappy. They're very proud and they're very happy. And it's because their expectations were set right from day one. And we were all first-timers, so yeah.
Thank you.
I would like to ask Christine one question, because before you did the Arab-German co-production in the Bosch Foundation, you did German Eastern European, and as you said, there is no business interest, and the money is enough to complete a film, so it's quite a comfortable situation to produce your first film. Do you follow up with people who won your award if it helped them to step by step get into the industry or do some step out also?
Yeah. When I said it's not about business, I meant the idea of the foundation. Doing the film prize is not the idea to strengthen the film industry, but to strengthen the cultural exchange. But of course, for the producers which participated at the program, it meant a lot, even also for their business, because for the German producers who took part at the Film Prize program with Eastern Europe, it was a very important step in their career. They keep telling us this because it was a very comfortable situation, as you said, to learn about international cooperation, to make your first steps on an international area, to build up a network. A lot of German producers also not only do short fiction or short or documentaries with the people from Eastern Europe, but they followed up, like they produced the first feature of the director in Eastern Europe and so on. So our program is very often first step in the career as a producer. Also on the German part, because I think the program, the Film Prize, is not only a benefit for the Eastern European region or for the Arab region, but of course also for the German producers to get used to international business.
Yeah.
I have a question and something I've been thinking about. How important is co-production treaty? Because sometimes I feel that some countries they're afraid to approach other countries because they don't have a treaty. But I have seen countries work together even though they don't have a treaty. And how much time should we take to try to do more co-production treaties between countries? Or should we still encourage countries working together? Who want to answer?
Well, I would say definitely yes. I mean, the Dutch Film Fund, for instance, is trying to increase its number of co-production treaties all over the world. There's this nice structure in place in Europe, which is called the European Convention, which often helps, for instance, to get into to make use of existing treaties, for instance, of France or Belgium or Germany, that have other bilateral treaties. And the only point of having a treaty is getting national recognition and being able to access funding in those places, or ideally even get money from Creative Europe, for instance, later on. So you can produce any film without any treaty. Find those guys that she found on Facebook and just make your film.
Really?
Boom. And let's all befriend her and find who those guys were. But seriously, if it becomes something slightly bigger, even for instance, my own little Indian adventure, which was the other Irfan Khan movie, didn't do as well as Lunchbox at all. But a nice co-production. We went through the German-Indian treaty. So we had 3 European co-producers, France, Netherlands, Germany, and India, and it was possible because of the Indian-German co-production treaty, which made it possible to get Indian funding from the NFDC in this case, and lots of public diverse funding out of Europe. Even Eurimage said, oh, you know what, we'll say it's a European film, which is hard to imagine, but they did. So once you're on that co-production structure level, which means usually a bigger budget, then it becomes very sensible, and it can be very helpful. And I think you mentioned Argentina and Brazil. Latin America is one of those continents that have shown so much movement, so much of a film industry developing in Argentina, and Brazil is like bursting with funding as well, that sooner or later there'll be partners in Eurimage, sooner or later there'll be more treaties. where we used to fund them or enter into films from Latin America only for Hubert Ball's schemes, meaning little money and almost like foreign aid, similar to Fonds Sud. Now those are proper co-productions through the other schemes, because there's more co-productions going on, like with Mexico, and all of a sudden they have a cash system. And all those things should make sense. And there's this hope, I think, that we have as Europeans coming to this region, that the money from the Gulf and all the talents from the entire Maghreb bundle together to form a business by themselves, have a distribution model by themselves, which make them a partner that could work on that level as well. Does that answer your question, Michael?
It answered the question, but I wanted another answer.
What answer were you looking for?
No, because I want to encourage countries to work together, even though they don't have the co-production treaty. Because especially in the US, I meet a lot of independent producers, and they're really afraid of co-producing with Europe because, oh, we don't have a treaty, we can't do anything together with Europe because we don't have a treaty. And Canada has 100 treaties with every country. So they're really afraid of that. So I want to encourage them to keep working together, keep creating things together, like the Robert Bosch Stiftung. They want to create cooperation, to learn about the different cultures, to create collaborations between countries, even though it's not an official like co-production under a treaty.
That's a good point, and I think one of the elements that comes into that equation is timing and time, and all the dealings I've had, for instance, or that we've had with indie US producers or US producers in general, or producers that are used to work on, let's say, an equity-based system, are put off by the amount of time it takes to go through public funding schemes, etc., which includes all those treaty questions. I would say that sometimes it really depends on the project. Sometimes, and that's why Robert Bosch is such a great initiative, because you get the money, you make your film, boom. You don't have to go through years of putting together a structure or finding money and raising your budget. For other films, that's exactly what's needed. For other films, you need all those years, and you need all those partners, and you need that bigger structure to have that impact. And if that means people need to get used to each other's scheme, so be it. You know, if it's if Pebblers is you're still working on that film to get it distribution, it means business means that often you're in bed with each other for many, many years. Paradise Now took many, many years. Atlantic took many, many years. And I happen to believe that for some projects, that is the right route. They become better financially, they have a better chance to find their way. But for others, I totally agree, you know, F the treaties, just find a little bit of money, make the film, and then show what you can do, and before you know it, you'll have a business.
Well, just to add to that, we did Monsoon Shootout with pre-selling to Arte TV and raising money from there and private investment from Netherlands and India. So it was completely outside the treaty, but the film did go to Cannes a couple of years ago. We're still trying to find the model, you know. And then we did Lunchbox under the treaty, which really took a lot of time to close the paperwork because it was our first time, and also the tax system in India is epic. So to make that, to understand to your other co-producers, because we all come from different worlds. But having said that, the major point of treaty is if you want to access government funding, you cannot do it because the government funds from Telefilm Canada or CNC in France have a rule of the treaty. You can only undergo if your project needs to access that. If your project does not need to access it, then of course we can do it on Kickstarter and pre-sale and do what we want. I mean, it's about what the film needs to do.
It's not about treaties, but I just want to take the opportunity to encourage the young filmmakers here in the audience to apply for our film prize, and not also only for the film prize. If you don't have the possibility to meet with a German producer, we also organize project markets in Amman in the summer and also in Cairo, and you can apply with an idea to the project market and try to find a German producer there, and a lot of couples, so to say, came out of this project market. So we don't have so many applications from the Gulf region yet, so please try it.
Yeah, a question to Christine. Actually, you said there's a possibility of having a team of Arab filmmaker and German producer, but are there restrictions on the subject of the film, or can it just be any Arab filmmaker living anywhere wanting to make any story?
There is no limit of subject or something. It's just you need to seduce, of course, also the German producer with a good book, a good idea, a good project. That's all.
Yeah, one last question.
I just want to know the first maybe 3 things you take into consideration when you're trying to think about how you want to fund your film. Like, when that comes, what are the first... Can you hear me? No. You can't hear me?
No, the acoustics is very bad because the sound goes to you and not to us.
Okay,
so
my voice is very low.
This is why we make faces.
What are the first 3 things you guys take into consideration when you're thinking about funding your film? When you're trying to find funding for your film? Did you hear that?
What are the 3 things that you take into consideration when you start funding a film?
I would say I would stay with 1 for now.
Okay.
And let the others find 2 more. I would say that as a producer in particular, and because this is what you take on once you approach funders, is that you have a sensible idea of what your project actually is at its core. Because it's very, very confusing, and it's very off-putting to any financier, funding, or distributor, festival, if what you say your film is about or should be does not match what you actually have. One of them, the easiest criteria I use when I access an application, for instance, which I do now on a daily basis, very weird, is to see whether there's consistency between the ambitions of the filmmaker, the stuff that the producer has supplied, and what the script is actually, or the previous work is actually about. So to be able to assess as a producer whether you are a film that is looking for 20 friends, or that wants to go through a treaty and find money in Canada, that needs a star or not, that needs to be made quickly or could use with a lot of development, requires a very deep understanding of what the project is at its core. Once you have that, it can change as you go along, but still, once you have that, you can voice it, you can use it, and it will make it something unique.
Okay.
Are there core steps?
What do you think? Find 2 more, please.
No, I just think the same. I mean, it's something, you have projects where you can feel there is some kind of, how do you say, coherence? I mean, it's something, coherence between you as a producer, the director, the story, something which is global. I mean, which is, coherence, and you can feel that. Not an idea coming from outside or something that you can try because of you have an opportunity of funding or something. It really starts from this coherence, and it's something you have to feel as a producer.
I just want to say that it's a very good question because it allows us to also think. There are some projects, I mean, this is a very typical marketing question that I'm asked by marketing and distribution people on the other side. What is your target audience? Yeah. You know, so while we tell universal stories for everyone, I've always tried to also understand where do we belong with this story. You know, some films and the directors are at a pace, at least in India, where they want to shoot next month. You know, and it's only for the Indian audiences. And they're ready to go because they know one rich person and they have the money. You know, so there are of course some films like that. And then there are some films where people are ready to kill themselves to tell that story and will wait 10 years to say it, you know. And it depends on how you want to structure this. And firstly, of course, if the story is universal, global, if I should pick up a conversation with an international producer and not waste his time selling a typical Indian film, which they'll be like, why are we telling this, you know? So you need to just understand where this belongs and then venture out. With one of the directors in the company that I work with, he and I have discussed that this script needs to go through the Indo-Canada, and we're okay to make it in the next 5 years. Next 5-6 years, we're okay to develop it. It's gone into development. We're okay to put that processes, and we're okay to shoot it in 2018, 2017-18. But then there are other scripts we want to shoot next year, and that those are meant for India market, and yeah, we'll see how they go along. So you need to juggle between that. And I think what they said is absolutely right. You just need to know as a producer where you can base this, and then how do you go around constructing it. It's quite amazing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say that it also depends on the project itself. For example, no one comes to, all the directors come and say we want to shoot next year, but everyone knows, at least in the region that I come from, that they will never shoot next year. It will take 3 to 5 years to finance it. But I always ask myself if with this project I can do it out of the box. I can do it in another way. And this really triggers me, and it depends on each project. But sometimes we can find the money fast, in 1 year, to be able to shoot it. And I always try to every project I try to see what is something special about it that will make me just get out of the path of the 5 years process of all the funds and all this. Sometimes it works, and we will be able to do it for maybe $50,000. And sometimes if this 100,000 or 200,000 will take us 3-4 years to find them. So I always try to search for something new, just to get out of the normal path.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for everybody, and thank you, panelists, to being so open and clear that co-production is not money-making.